Close. Sorry, I got some kind of message about how I'm supposed to moderate the live chat. It's like, no, you guys are doing fine without me telling you what to do. Um, I, I'm, I'm, I wouldn't change a word you guys write because I enjoy reading your comments on this very much. So, anyway, hello and welcome to Sailor Soul Sailing. So, it's been a weird week already, and it's just Tuesday. And it's so now Trump is saying he's had enough of huge success in Iran, and he's ready to bugger off and call it a day, which that's a very serious thing because he's in a bind. You know, the U.S. is in a bind right now. Um, okay, here's how. You probably hear about the petrodollar and the treasury market, the bond market, the treasury bills and all that. But here's how the U.S. is able to spend, you know, quadruple what it earns every month, every quarter, every day is the thing keeping the U.S. floating financially more than anything right now is the petrodollar. So what how that's so Nixon took us off Bretton Woods Accord, which was pretty screwed up, really. The Bretton Woods Accord was no great thing, but taking us off of it was really bad because that the Bretton Woods Accord was the beginning of the death of the gold standard, and taking us off of it was the nail in the coffin of real money. Since then, our Federal Reserve note has been nothing but a loan from the Rothschild banks that we pay interest on. Every dollar that they print, every cent they generate with a one and a zero, is a fraction of that goes into the Rothschild banking cabal. Um, that's why we have so much interest. That's why our interest payments are so high. It's a big scam. It's a you know there's been some really good books written about this, like The Creature from Jekyll Island. I can't think of there's a bunch of good books written about the whole scam that is the Federal Reserve uh, banking system. The whole central banking cabal. Andrew Jackson kicked the Rothschilds' asses out of the United States in like 1825 or 1826, and they worked their asses off. They didn't get back in until they had their Warburg toady come and basically rape frickin' Woodrow Wilson, and he just rolled over and took it. Although he knew, if you read some of the stuff he wrote, he knew that he had totally screwed the pooch with the Federal Reserve Act of 1913. But anyway, so I mean the central banking cabal is sort of headquartered in London, really, but their real base of operation is Israel. That's why was it Nathan Rothschild or whoever it was got Lord Balfour to give them Palestine, give it to a bunch of Polish and Ukrainians living in Switzerland, a bunch of bankers. They gave them Palestine because it was their promised land, I guess. So um, anyway, that's why we're fighting a war right now. So this is not going well. This is going very badly, no matter what you hear, because uh, you know here's why Trump's between a rock and a hard place here. He really has no good options. He can he can completely destroy the country fairly quickly, by getting into a drawn out war that has like 17% support among the American people and have a huge body count and all this stuff, sending troops into Iran, it's not going to happen. It's not. I mean, it's going to be a disaster. And nobody wants that. They're not that daft, you know. Well, Netanyahu is. Israel wants us. Israel wants the United States to fight a ground war in Iran because then that will destroy both Israel, the United States, and Iran, and then they'll have nobody opposing them when they take over the Middle East and enact the Greater Israel Project, the Pax Judaica they call it. But you know, the Zionists running Israel, the bloodthirsty criminals running that have been illegally occupying Palestine since 1948. They might have bitten off more than they could chew, because last night, so I don't know, Trump says we're winning. He's winning hugely. He's getting bored with winning. But last night, Iran targeted Netanyahu's house, killed Netanyahu's brother. Netanyahu is, I think he's in Miami, probably whoever the latest Epstein honey trap is, probably molesting children in Miami, because that's what those people do, the Epstein class, I mean. But I heard he's in the Mediterranean, maybe. He's been flying all over the place because he doesn't really dare land. It's all BS, another Bush, Cheney, Halliburton playbook. Yeah, well, I mean, absolutely. It is the same playbook, but it's different characters, but ultimately they work for the same. The faces change, the names change. It might be Bush, it might be Obama, it might be Biden, it might be Trump. But ultimately, they're all members of the Epstein class. They're all controlled by like demonic pedophiles. And when it comes to Netanyahu, I try not to get angry, because anger is louche. Anger is how they feed the reptilian overlords they worship, the demonic creatures that control the Epstein class. So I try not to get angry, but it's hard not to when you look at Netanyahu. I mean, he's been a monster for like 35 years. Well, longer than that, but it's kind of when he really came into power in Israel, it was about 36, 37 years ago, something like that. He is pretty close to satanic. I mean, he's a creature that's satanic. I don't wish anybody getting killed. I don't wish those poor girls in the Iranian school. Some people I don't mind getting rid of, like just because the West is ruled by the Epstein class doesn't mean the Islamic world's not ruled by its own version of the Epstein class, I don't trust any of them. I don't trust any leaders. We shouldn't be assigning our personal sovereignty to any of these satanic, pedophile, Epstein class, whatever. Or whatever version of it they have in Asia, whatever version of it they have in the Middle East. It's... but as far as Netanyahu goes, like I honestly, I won't lie. I didn't shed any tears about the Ayatollah getting taken out, and I certainly wouldn't shed any tears about Bibi's brother getting whacked, or Bibi himself. So this Professor Jang, he's been pretty accurate. It's kind of terrifying that he is accurate. But he predicts that what's going to happen is that Israel will succeed in and basically having Iran and the United States destroy each other, and in the process they'll take out the Gulf states, and then they'll be able to enact the Greater Israel Project. And he also thinks that that China's going down. He doesn't think China will survive the world economy imploding, but he thinks that Russia will survive. And he thinks what's going to happen is that maybe some of the Eastern European countries, like as far west as Germany, will realize which side their bread is buttered on and hook up with Russia. So it'll be like Russia, Germany, Poland, maybe Scandinavia, which might not be the worst thing for Scandinavia. We'll just sort of get in bed with Russia, and we'll see. Hey, a bunch of you are watching. If you like, if you get a chance, give it a like, because apparently I hear that helps us with our shadow banning. So seriously, subscribe, like, share it, because it's banned as all hell. Lucky you guys are finding this channel. So anyway, fuck Bibi, fuck his whole family, fuck his brother, fuck the Ayatollah, fuck every one of those reptile Epstein class pedophile Satanist bastards. I'm not wishing anybody harm, but if harm comes to some of these people, I'm not going to, I guess I'm not a good person because I might chuckle a little bit about it. But anyway, that's what Professor Zhang thinks will happen, and he's been pretty accurate. He's been probably the most accurate an analyst that we've had for a very long time. But I'm not so sure he's right on this. I partially see it. And if the U.S. goes in and fights a ground war in Iran, it will be the end of the United States as a functioning sovereign nation. It really will. I think if that happens, Victoria and I did a reading a few years ago now, I guess, that we predicted that the United States was going to have something like a civil war, but not a civil war, and that it was going to break up into like seven independent nation states. And I could see that happening if we fight a ground war. I could see that happening pretty easily. And God help the people in California and New York and Illinois if that happens. But that's a very good possibility of what might actually happen in this. And I think, and Trump sees that. That's why he's bravely turning his tail and fleeing. That's why he wants to get out of there as fast as he can without putting boots on the ground. Here's the problem: if he does that, if he leaves without, if Iran is still bombing Israel and leveling Tel Aviv and Haifa or whatever the town is that's getting hammered, that's going to cost us dearly as a nation state. The United States is a nation state, because it'll kill the petrodollar. It might not happen right away. It'll be a slow death. If we leave Iran without going in, boots on the ground, it'll be a slow death for the country. If we stay and go in, it'll be a quick and painful death. He's for whatever reason he decided to fight Bibi's war, because he could have done so much. He could have salvaged so much. He really has. Some of the people in his administration are quite intelligent, and if he hadn't gone off to fight Bibi's war, he could have salvaged something tremendous in the United States. I was hoping for that. I was like, because but here's what's going to happen if he leaves. The Gulf states, they're already pissed off at the U.S. because the U.S. pulled out all its intercept missiles and sent them to Israel just before they attacked Iran, so that they've got. That's why all the U.S. bases are getting leveled in Iran. That's why the like multi-billion dollars worth of radar equipment's been bombed, and that's totally screwed us because that radar equipment that their Iranians blew up was what our F-35s, I think the F-35s were flying around, and they were, there's no boots going in. I hope you're right. It's Operation Trumpstein Fury. How do you really feel about Jews? You know how I feel about Jews? I love Jews, and I've actually, I'm extremely worried about some of the Jewish people that I love dearly. U.S. bases in the Gulf Coast. No. The Iranians aren't blowing up, shooting missiles into Iran to get American bases. They're shooting missiles into the Gulf Coast countries, the GCC. Qatar, where we've got like 30 some bases, or we had up until recently. Being anti-Zionist is different. Yeah. How I feel about Jews, I'm still going to do one about that. I'm so worried about Jewish people that I love dearly that here's what I'm afraid. I'm afraid that too many people are too stupid to understand the difference between a decent Jewish person and a Zionist. Zionism is a racist philosophy. Zionism is that the Jews are better than everybody else, and everybody else is like cattle and is expendable, and if they kill goyim, that it's no big deal. That's Zionism. Zionism is a brutally racist philosophy it's intolerable. And Israel is a Zionist country. Netanyahu, the whole Greater Israel Project is a Zionist project. So yeah, I mean, I'm actually making plans to use my boat to rescue Jewish people if things get ugly, because stupid people will attack. They won't know the difference between a Jewish person and a Zionist, and they'll just attack anybody that's Jewish. And I had a vision about this in 2020. In March of 2020, I just got back from Thailand, and this was like March 20th of 2020 when we were starting to have lockdowns and shit like that. They were gonna lock down for 2 weeks to curb the something or whatever bullshit, and that was just when they were starting to talk about that. And I was doing these ayahuasca ceremonies. I just finished like my 4th ayahuasca ceremony in about 2 years. And I was doing a lot of like shamanic work with mushrooms at the time. And I had this information come to me. Just this information just flooded me, and I wrote it down. I'm both modern Iranian and Zionist. I support Israel. What do you say to me now, Captain? Well, I don't think you're going to be on my crew. But that's okay. I mean, you have every right to your opinion. What do I say to you? I don't agree with you, but I certainly wouldn't tell you how to think or how to live. So anyway, one of the things I saw was that something was going to happen that would create such a backlash against Israel that it would create a wave of anti-Semitism. It would be like an overcorrection, and people would be mad at the Zionists, and it would become very dangerous. The world would become very dangerous for decent Jewish people. Boy, I think I've got the attention of some IDF trolls here. Anyway, whatever. Um, so I I mean I saw this this situation in the future when when there would be like violent anti-Semitism, and it was terrifying. It terrified me. And you know, I've been watching for it, but I haven't seen it. But I think that that's something that might come out of this war. Uh, um, there's so yeah, I'm really I mean, I'm not going to lose any sleep over dead Zionists. But I'm going to do everything in my power to protect the Jewish people that I love dearly, and who I used to be involved with this organization. It was a pro-Palestinian organization called what was it called? Jewish JVP, Jewish Voice for Peace, and it was the best people. It was you know, I was like I had a token foreskin in the group. It was mostly Jewish people, and but you know, I was still involved with politics and stuff back then, and I I you know, I did a lot of work with these people. I still have a Free Palestine sticker that they gave me on my computer. Um, so, you know, if the people I love who happen to be Jewish are in danger, I will defend them uh, with whatever I can. So all Iranians support Israel, and Bibi is the love of all Iranians. Well, I'm going to guess that the family members of that school that got blew up, you know, those 170 little girls that got cremated, incinerated by a Tomahawk missile, might probably not fit in with that all Iranians. But hey, so those of you who aren't IDF trolls, why don't you give it a like? There's quite a lot of you watching, and why don't you? There's a bunch of Zionists on here, and why don't you chime in and hit the like button and kind of think of it as a thumb up their ass, you know. uh, believe in you believe in the regime's propaganda. What regime? The Zion the Israeli regime, the U.S. regime. We the people have no problem with the people. You know, well, I'm glad that some of you aren't. I'm glad that some of you. I know there's a big Jewish population. There's historically been a big Jewish population in Iran. It used to be a center of Jewish culture before the. I don't know. Maybe it still is. So yeah, there's. Anyway, whatever. I'm not going to argue about that. We'll see what happens, because that's not what we're talking about right now. Yeah, I'm going to ignore the questions, because what we're talking about right now is the GCC, the Gulf state countries, abandoning the petrodollar, OPEC. That's OPEC, oil producing economic whatever consortium or whatever that was. But that's the That's the Gulf Coast countries that comprise OPEC. That's the people that export 20% of the world's oil supply through the Strait of Hormuz. So this is if they here's the deal that Kissinger and Nixon the Kissinger and Nixon engineered with OPEC was they took us off the gold standard, and that would have destroyed our currency, but they engineered a situation where OPEC countries would only sell their oil in U.S. dollars, and then the OPEC country, you know, the Gulf Coast countries would take that money and they'd put it in, they'd invest it in U.S. treasuries, and that was a safe store of value. So and then in return we'd provide military protection for the Gulf Coast countries. That's why we went in. That's why we got dragged into the whole when Iraq invaded Kuwait. Uh, that's why we're the policemen of the world, the policemen of the oil producing region. 'Cause we'd made an agreement with these GCC, with Gulf Coast countries to protect them. And and I so here's the problem. If the U.S. pulls out and doesn't send troops on the ground, and if Iran retains control of the Strait of Hormuz and keeps bombarding Israel and bombarding U.S. bases, because they have said they're not going to have a ceasefire anytime soon. Uh, anyway. Wow. Well, I hope that the IDF is paying you all, you trolls, because you're not lazy. You're not smart, but you're not lazy. Anyway, so what's going to happen is that they'll back out of the petrodollar agreement, and that would utterly destroy the world, the U.S. economy, utterly destroy it. The reason we can print so much money, that the U.S. can keep going so far into debt, is because, in large part, because the Gulf Coast countries buy our treasuries. They invest they take the U.S. dollars that they get for selling their oil and reinvest those U.S. dollars in U.S. treasuries. So that's why the U.S. can run up such a huge deficit and just and basically spend money like drunken sailors. If that ends, we're effed in the A. I mean, we're already having all kinds of trouble because China was our largest single lender, and in like 2014 or so, they quit buying U.S. treasuries, and in 2018, they began selling them. They used to have like $2.1 trillion of our debt that they held, and now it's like 500 billion of it. They've gotten rid of like 3/4 of their debt. So our largest lender is now selling our debt and not buying it, and that makes us even more reliant on the Gulf Coast countries reinvesting all those petrodollars back into U.S. treasuries. Wow. I got to say, Robert, I'm not going to say too much. I think I've said all about that. I'll get to the reading here. But Robert, you just keep going and going and going. And, man, if I didn't like something, I wouldn't be such a twat that I just keep, lobbing insults. Yeah, Robert, I did call you a twat. I'm sorry. But, you're a twat. But anyway, so the U.S. is screwed one way or the other. So if there's boots on the ground and troops start coming back in body bags, because this is not an easy fight. It's the Iranian side of the Strait of Hormuz is like mountainous region. It's not. The U.S. kind of drove the Italians and the Germans out of Africa in World War II, and then they crossed the Mediterranean, and they took, I think, one island, and then they were gonna take Italy over, and they'd really had a pretty easy time of it, but they got to Italy, and the Italian troops were dug into the mountains, and that was a long, bloody battle. I mean, they won that one, but they had the world behind them. Right now, the world's viewing Israel and the United States as basically the axis of evil, and the U.S. is also going bankrupt. I mean, because we're having to pay higher and higher interest to borrow money because our credit rating's gone to shit. And that's because China's been selling our debt instead of buying it. And if we lose the petrodollar, I mean, the United States is looking at becoming the Weimar Republic of the 21st century. Um, the So the United States is effed in the A one way or the other. Either they pull out and they slowly lose the petrodollar over a course of a few years, or else they stay and get bogged down in a war and just basically a mutual assured destruction, really, between with Russia and China backing Iran. Russia and China are not hurting economically right now. I mean, they are, but not like we are. They're not begging for money. You know, they. So either way, it's going to be, and if there's horrendous. Thank you, from thank you, love from Iran. Uh, um, the the if there's like if we're starting to see like mass number of casualties coming back in body bags from Iran, fighting in difficult terrain for we don't have the ground troops for it. We got what, 500,000 ground troops, I think. I think we soldiers in the military right now. I think we need twice that to go in. If they start having a draft to go fight fight a war that 72 or 73% of the Americans view as Israel's war, according to a recent poll. So it's like, yeah, there is going to be a regime change in the United States. It's either going to happen over the course of years, 5-10 years in one. Yeah, well, they need about I think there's 500,000 combat troops. They got like 1.4 million, yeah, but a lot of those people are like, they're not combat troops. They're administrators and shit like that. And and they need about 1 million people they need about 1 million boots on the ground to really, because Iran's a tough nut to crack. Anyway, we're looking at regime change one way or the other. Either it'll be relatively quickly if Trump starts sending in troops to Iran, or it'll take time. Or else it'll be a slow death if they lose the petrodollar. But Israel, what's going on in Israel right now? What's going on in Israel right now is quite a different story. It's like, I mean, Netanyahu's house got bombed last night, and they killed his brother, and one of their top leaders is like critically injured. Apparently, he got a minor injury in a car accident, but he's not doing so well. And here I was talking about Professor Jang, and here's where I think Jang might be wrong. I think Israel's a lot more precarious situation than it appears. I think Israel could really. I think the illegal occupation of Palestine, a bunch of Poles and Ukrainians and Russians could come to a screeching halt pretty soon. Well, let's see what the cards have to say about that. That's what I was going to do a reading about today. And those of you that are sticking around that aren't trolls, why don't you give it a like, just to be a thumb up the ass of the trolls. I'm kind of surprised I haven't had trolls for a while. So thank you guys for coming back. I missed you all. Oh hey. Let's see what the cards have to say about this whole mess. I've got I got a plan here. I got a distraction for the little first mate if she decides to come up here and walk across the cards while I'm doing this. And I got my my setup done today before. See if I can get her to come and say hi. No, I'm in this. Um, yeah. So is Jing right? Is Professor Jing right? And he's quite often right. Is Israel going to come out of this the big winner of all this? Is the Persian Gulf country, are the Persian Gulf countries going to be basically taken out as collateral damage, and Iran and the United States going to fight till the point where they have pretty much destroyed each other and themselves, and then getting rid of the competition for Israel for the Greater Israel Project? Or has Israel bitten off more than it can chew? You know, some of the images I'm seeing coming out of Tel Aviv, they've got a 5-year prison sentence for anybody that sends out photos, that publishes photos on social media and gets caught out of Israel. And that even includes like Al Jazeera and shit like that. So why are they hiding this stuff? You know, I mean, why are they having such crazy dramatic laws that kind of basically, why have they, when a country has to resort to that level of censorship, that country's in trouble. That country's in deep shit. And I've done the astrology for Israel a couple of times for some of the past readings. If you go back and look at some of the readings I did with Victoria, when we were doing the old readings, I think there's a good chance that Jing is wrong. I think there's a good chance that Israel might finally be recognized worldwide as the criminal occupation it is, and Zionism as the incredibly racist philosophy that it is. I mean, how can you have a philosophy that says one group of people are the chosen people and everybody else is cannon fodder and can be used or killed to further the aims of the chosen people? How can you have a philosophy like that? Unless you're a racist monster, which would explain why there's so much Israeli involvement in the whole Epstein class with the whole pedophile. Maybe that's why they accept convicted people that are fleeing charges of child rape. They welcome them with open arms into Israel if they're Jewish with the right of return. Eh? So here's the signifier. And those of you that are defending Israel on here, those of you that are defending Israel, tell me that's not true. Tell me that Israel doesn't welcome pedophiles who are fleeing from the law with open arms. You tell me that that's not true, because it is true. And what kind of country does that? I mean, in Idaho, they passed a law with the death sentence for pedophilia. In Israel, they say, come on in, come in as many as you want. You know, we've got our, Epstein's probably alive there somewhere. He's probably living in Israel somewhere, and he can hook them up with some children to molest, you know. Here's the overall situation. So right now, I'd say there's some real compassion in this earth right now. That's we'll see what the cards say, but there's a battle going on between good and evil. A serious battle between good and evil. And let me tell you, those of you who are Zionists who support Israel, I'm telling you that countries that welcome with open arms pedophiles who are on the run from the law, if in a battle between good and evil, that country isn't the good one, you know. And here's the gateway, and that's balance. That's bringing balance to the earth in stormy and rough situation. So, and here's the root card is the star. So the root card is I'm just going to take that to say that we're starting to accept our power. We're starting to own our personal sovereignty. We're starting to not abdicate our personal sovereignty to the Epstein class pedophiles and satanic Satan worshipers. And here's the present moment, and that's fierce action. Fierce action right now. And here is the psychological future, and that is a mature passion, maturation of our passion. And here is the future, and that is the birth of spirit. So yeah, and here's our fear. Our fear is partnership. Maybe this is our fear of our partnership with the Epstein class, between the Epstein class and the Zionist state of Israel. And here is the astrological energy, and this is fierce, putting that compassionate energy that compassionate power we've developed into sort of a fierce decisive use. And here's our desire, and what we want is balance in the world. We want to bring. See, there's on that card. There's the fire. There's the earth, the Taurus. There's the bull, water and air. And this is all of that coming into balance in the world. That's the last card in the major arcana, and that's a really good. That's the best card in the deck, and that's what we want. So, and we had a lot of court cards here, a lot of what we call face cards, and this is the final outcome. And so what we've got is a development of passion, of mature energy in our own selves, a mature passion, and we're acting right now. We're really moving ahead. Something's happening. The world's changing. Very much the world is changing. And but we're in a battle right now. There's a massive battle taking place right now between good and evil. But we're going to find the balance to retake the earth, retake the world from the evil Epstein class. You know, the pedophiles and the satanic pedophiles. And this is modifying the astrological this is modifying our fears. So we fear partnership. We fear committed partnership, but we get past that. We can find joy. Maybe that means that we, the humans, not the reptiles, not the demonic, satanic creatures that all the world's governments seem to bow down before. You know, Baal, whatever, the Elohim. Maybe we get past that. Maybe our problem is that we've been making a partnership with the devil. That's our abdicating our power to the Epstein class in all the world's governments, and we can find real joy if we just make a partnership with each other, a committed partnership with each other, instead of our rulers, the child rapists, you know, the monsters. And this is modifying the astrological energy, and that's the Queen of Swords. And this is telling me that we're going through a battle right now, and it's fierce. It's for real. We're in the thick of it right now. But we find balance. It's going to get us to a place of comfort and peace. And this modifies our desires. That's the world, and that means this world, this changing world, can bring us some tremendous like spiritual wealth. We can find a really beautiful place. And this is modifying the final outcome. This is modifying the King of Cups. And the Hierophant is, the Hierophant is, in a way, the Hierophant kind of represents the Epstein class that we've abdicated our personal sovereignty to all these years. But maybe that means that when we find our spirit, we're going to retake this world from the Epstein class. I hope that's what it says. Good Lord. You know who else is a monster? That would be those goofy. Wow. Wow. Well, I got a lot of trolls today. I wonder how much do they pay you to do this stuff? I can usually tell when it's Israeli troll because they're shit English. Yeah, I told a story about my IDF tank commander that I had as a crew about 5-6 years ago, and he would just get on. He'd yell at the barge traffic on the radio because he didn't like the way they were driving, and he would yell, and he had this broken English. You stupid! You so stupid! How come you so stupid? You stupid man! And that's what a lot of you trolls sound like, actually. Anyway, well, hey, glad some of you are. I hope that some of the people watching are not trolls. If you're not a troll, if you don't have your tongue up Netanyahu's ass, if you don't suckle at the freaking anus at the rectal eye of the Epstein class, you don't worship this demonic pedophile elite that we used to consider our superiors, give it a like. Anyway, but I think Israel's going down. I really do. I think we're in the battle right now, and I don't think it's that far off. I think Professor Zhang is probably wrong when he thinks Israel's going to come out the winner in this. And he thinks it'll be like a horrible. He sees that as like the worst outcome possible, because he understands that this Greater Israel Project is a Zionist nightmare. It's a goddamn Zionist nightmare. It'd make the frickin' Ayatollah look good, actually. I think, and that's a low bar. It's like that's like all you people who worship one politician or another and say like, my pedophile's better than your pedophile and I'll kill you if you say anything different. It's like, no, you're both your pedophiles. They're satanic reptiles that really should be converted into cowboy boots. But anyway, I think there's a bunch of us that are going to come out all right on this. And thank those of you and the trolls. I'm not going to thank you because, you're here, I guess. But thank those of you who aren't trolls for, let's stick together. These trolls, they're in for a very rude awakening. They're gonna have these people that abdicate. They're too weak to own their personal sovereignty themselves, so they abdicate it to the Epstein class, and they're in for a very rude awakening. It's going to be a rough year or two for them, and I guess if they come around, if they realize that they've done wrong, and if they need help, we'll give it to them. But they'll be down on the list from the rest of you. So love you all, and take care, and thank you for watching. Um, I I will. I Sorry if I missed any intelligent comments amongst the diarrhea spewing out of the keyboards of the trolls. Take care, love you, and see you probably tomorrow. And trolls, you can come back too, because you guys still count as on the algorithm. So come on back. Love you all.